coming up.
I had a motion that I provided to the clerk to do with the oath of secrecy,
And what my question through you, if I could, Mr. Chair, to Ms. Boniface is that as a chair, would you use this opinion to guide what questions were in or without the mandate of our questioning and our lines of questioning?
So the whole point of this was merely to say we took an oath of secrecy. I'd like to know what exactly that allows us access to, because that's not a normal practice of the committee.
This Guy's Garage. Like and subscribe.
Senator Boniface.
I had a motion that I provided to the clerk to do with the oath of secrecy, and I wonder if it can be shared with everyone if it has not been done so.
So we have Senator Boniface's motion now on the floor. Did you want to speak to the motion?
Very briefly, if I may, Mr. Chair. I think I've spoke to each of the groups around the table, and the purpose is really to give us a baseline on and a common understanding of the interpretation of the oath of secrecy. And so I would move that we go to a vote.
The motion is debatable. It is subject to debate, Senator Boniface. So let's hear from those who would like to speak. I'll take names. Mr. Green.
I wish I had that power to just move the motion and get right to the vote. And I just shared these comments in person. I'd like to just reflect on them now that, I'm quite clear that when the law clerks come back, they'll likely have an opinion that the oath of secrecy pertains simply to the secret orders in council, in which I don't know that whether we have or we haven't even gotten to that point yet. But I just want to be clear that in supporting this, that will be my understanding in terms of our oath of secrecy. However, it doesn't. I'm not willing to concede the fact that we still have the ability as a committee to get to the heart of the matter and have parliamentary privileges that are beyond what has been presented to us. And I just want to reference, Mr. Chair, when we hear members around this table talk about frustration and getting to work, I can't imagine a scenario where we continue to invite witnesses who continue to come before us and tell us they can't tell us anything. That's frustrating. And that was the case with the ministers that we had before us. That was the case with CSIS and with the RCMP. And so my hope is that in this motion, we also have the ability to contemplate when it comes back as a committee matters for which we are going to demand extra scrutiny, where we will hopefully create parameters of when we ought to be going into camera, to hopefully be privy to facts of the matter, because as it stands now, this motion will pass and they'll come back and just say it's a code of secrecy for the secret orders in council that were constituted over the course of the emergency, which will be likely very minimal, given what we already know as a committee. So those are my reflections on this motion. I'll support it, kind of knowing where it's going to go, but also continue to beat the drum about wanting to get to a place as a committee where we have access to real information and where we have a duty of candor from our witnesses. Right? And last point of contention is that, referencing back to the Attorney General, who's also the Minister of Justice, they're always both the client and the solicitor at all times. And therefore, my challenge is we're not going to have access to anything substantive. Thank you.
The intention here was it would be a written opinion, not an appearance and such, and just for the basic information of the committee members around the table. And we thought that would help us as we move forward. So I didn't see it as premature, to your point, Mr. Chair. I saw it as merely giving us a piece of information to help us as that new information comes forward on redactions and such like, and in our planning going ahead for the work plan.
While I appreciate, in reading this, while I appreciate having the opinions, the joint opinions of the law clerk of the Senate in the House of Commons, I think that this is actually contrary to our standing orders and our parliamentary privilege. And what my question through you, if I could, Mr. Chair, to Ms. Boniface is that as a chair, would you use this opinion to guide what questions were in or without the mandate of our questioning and our lines of questioning?
I think your question actually demonstrates what I see as an issue around the table. So I was trying to get clarity. Is the perception to what information an oath of secrecy gives us? What does the oath of secrecy make this committee's operation different than others? So as an individual, both in what I have access to, but also in terms of what I can share. So the whole point of this was merely to say, we took an oath of secrecy. I'd like to know what exactly that allows us access to, because that's not a normal practice of the committee. And it's not something we asked the clerks when they were here. But I thought this would be a rather quick motion. It was really to try to get that single clarity, because when I have discussions with individuals or in our groups, I feel that there's a very different understanding around the table on what the oath of secrecy's impact is for the work that we're doing. And I just wanted, as I described to some of my colleagues at the table, kind of what's the baseline? And that's what the law clerk's legal or opinion would be in writing.
I'd like to get to the issue of the written opinion, also of just the opinion in general, whether it's written or not. I feel that the clerks are being put in this very sensitive position, difficult position. It's theoretical, abstract. What information the committee can access from witnesses, it's really broad. We don't have any facts or types of information, no specific situation to refer to put on the table here to refer to this opinion. How will she do that? Mr. Ronnie.
I just think if we asked 5 different lawyers that we'd possibly get 5 different opinions, so the notion of asking for more than one is probably a dangerous proposition. So I agree with Mr. Green, which might be the first time this evening.